This is Mrs. O'Neill for Chapter 6, Review Questions and Problems. As always, you're going to pause when you see the question or the problem. You can do them mentally or write down the answers. There's going to be multiple parts many times throughout this video, like charts. So you might want to write down those answers, even if it's just quickly jotting them down. So this way, when you continue playing the video, you're going to see those answers and you're going to be able to check your work a little bit easier instead of mentally, oh, what did I think of that? You'll actually have the answers written down. Again, especially for those chart forms. The other thing I want to suggest is to have out three things: your real periodic table, your periodic tables at the end of your packet, the one that's metals, nonmetals, and metalloids, and the one that's your group names. So you might want to have all of these out, so as you're working through these problems and questions, you have some reference to look on. So here's number 1 and the answer. Number 2, again, you're going to need your periodic table to come up with where they are located on your periodic table so you can answer this question easier. And the answer. Number 3, again, here's multiple, so make sure you write down if it's going to be a metal or a non-metal property. Again, use your notes. You also need to find in your notes the properties of metals and non-metals. So hopefully you wrote down either M or N, again, even if you're just jotting them down like on scratch paper, but I'm trying to keep that color coordination as well. So your metals are green color and your non-metals are blue color. So hopefully you paused and checked those answers. Number 4, again, you need that periodic table of the group names. That might be helpful because I'm just looking for basically a group number. Want to remind you there are 18 different groups, and so here are the answers as to what number these particular names correspond to. Number 5. So this is kind of like multiple choice. Out of all of these elements, again, you need to find them on your real periodic table. You need to know what group numbers are the representative elements. And so then you would figure out that those 3 elements would be considered representative. Again, not too important this chapter, but it's going to be really important next chapter to understand why we call these representative elements. Number 6. So you should know where the noble gases are, especially because we just answered where those noble gases are, which group number, and then you should be able to answer it this way. Remember to pause and read this information because helium is an exception to the rule. Number 7. This is your multiple choice. Answer is A. Number 8, now you are choosing. So you are looking at sodium and lithium, finding them both on your periodic table, and choosing which of these elements has the atomic radius according to the atomic radius trend. Here's your answers. And number 9. IE stands for ionization energy. So what would be the difference between the first ionization energy and the second ionization energy of an atom? Again, pause and hopefully that makes sense. And I want to remind you that however many electrons a particular atom has, that's how many ionization energies they would have, because there's an ionization energy associated with every single electron in that atom. Number 10, again, you have 3 pairs, and each pair, which one has the greater first ionization energy? Hopefully you paused. Hopefully you understand the trend. Hopefully you found them on your periodic table, whether they're in the same group or the same period, and chose those as your answer. Number 11, now I give you 3 elements from those three elements, can you arrange them from the smallest ionization energy to the greatest ionization energy? So small value to large value. And hopefully you came up with this. And again, I'm always putting in those alligator arrows because you see them quite often when we're comparing elements. Number 12. Answer. Number 13. Answer. Number 14. So again, this is an explanation. So this is an interesting question because you need to understand first what ionization energy is, then between first and second. You also need to know about the alkali metals and something special about those alkali metals, why there would be a huge increase between the first and second. And that's your answer. So pause and make sure you're reading over this and understanding that information. 15. Answer. 16. Again, you're choosing the pair. You're choosing you're choosing which one from the pair. It has the larger radius. Answer. And I have a little notation here. Again, the more the negative the particle, the bigger that particle would be. Again, because if it's negative, that means it's gaining those electrons. And when it's gaining those electrons, you are gaining size and becoming the larger atom. 17. Again, this is that other trend, electronegativity. So between each pair, which one is higher? Hopefully you chose those. Now, again, I made a little notation here with letter C. Remember that neon is a noble gas. It's not going to want to bond. And because it doesn't bond, it really doesn't have an electronegativity associated with it. So even though, again, it's more towards the right on the periodic table, that's a little tricky one there where neon is a noble gas, doesn't react. So we really didn't talk about their electronegativities at all. Number 18. And there's your trend. Again, the closer you are to fluorine, the more power you have to grab other people's electrons. 19. And remember, we talked a little bit about Coulombic attraction. So again, pause, read over this, and hopefully that makes sense as to the why. 20. Hopefully you paused. Again, you found them on the periodic table, and this hopefully makes sense about your valence electrons versus core electrons. So how many valence electrons each of these atoms has is going to help us understand the value of ionization energy. 21 is that chart that I was talking about. So again, you might want to pause, and you don't have to necessarily, make the actual chart, but you do want to have an A, and you want to have those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 answers. So it's easier then to check your answer. Okay, so hopefully you found them on your periodic table, and depending on their location, depending on which side of the stair-step line they're on, depending on what group number they're in, and depending if it's a metal or a non-metal. So again, pause and make sure that this all makes sense to you as far as if it's a metal or non-metal, depending on the side of the stair-step case that they're on. Valence electrons goes by the group number. The charge is going to tell us how many electrons are gained or lost according to their valence electrons. And of course, cation and anion, and that's where that green and blue come into play, right? Green for metals, they're going to be cations, positively charged. Blue for non-metals, they're going to be anions and have that negative charge. And number 21 continued. I just have a few more here. And hopefully, again, you paused and looked at your periodic table for this. Again, the charge is what's really going to be necessary for next chapter. All right, guys, I hope you're ready for your test.